This is day 1 of our NEET Sniper Series, where I'm going to cover the entire NEET portion in just 45 days, and you will be learning everything. So today is day 1, where we are going to discuss the Living World chapter. This is going to be the shortest videos that you will watch, and we will be covering the entire portion, everything that is important in the chapter. So let's start without wasting any time. So the first chapter, as you know, is the living world, because this is the chapter where we talk about our living world. Living world means all the living things. So we are going to discuss what are living things. Basically, we are going to do from basic. All of you know what is living thing, but still we will be discussing in this chapter what is living thing and what is not living, what is considered as living, what quality should an object have or a person have to be called as living. So all those we are going to discuss. Before that, let's discuss about the very important scientist who is known as Ernest Mayr. So Ernest Mayr is a very important scientist about whom you should know, because he is also known as the Darwin of the 20th century. Why he is known as the Darwin of the 20th century? Ernest Mayr is known as the Darwin of the 20th century because of his great achievements. Because one reason is, see, Darwin gave the theory of evolution, right? Similarly, Ernest Mayr also has lot of contributions. So he is known as Darwin of 20th century, and also he is known as Darwin of the 20th century only because he he has given lot of contribution. One among it is the most important one, that is biological concept of species. So he has given the biological concept of species, and he also holds three prizes, three most important prizes, which are known as triple crown. Because he has three prizes, it is known as triple crown. Holds triple crown. He has international prize, the Crawford prize, Baljan prize. So he has three of the most important prizes. So it is called as triple crown because it is three prizes. So that's why he is called as Darwin of the 20th century. He has given the biological concept of species. Not only that, he also holds three crown. So these are the most important things that you must know. So this covers everything about him. You don't have to know anything extra about him. Then the now we'll be starting with the chapter. When we start with the chapter, the first thing I told you, the main thing about this chapter is you should know about what is living being. What is a living being? Who is a living being? Because the name of the chapter is living world, right? So without talking about a living being, how can you start a chapter? So now, living being, who is considered as living? You know, you are living, I am living, everybody is living, so we all are living being. But how do you define that? If I want to suppose I want to define a living being who is considered as a living being. So living being is somebody living being is somebody who can self regulate, self replicate. First thing, self replicate. Replicate means what? It can give rise to itself. We can give rise to new organisms. We can heal whenever you are injured. Our body can replicate its own cells, right? So it is capable of self replicating and evolving. Self replicating, evolving. So somebody who can evolve, self regulate. It can regulate its own body temperature. It can adjust according to the surrounding. Whatever problem it is, we are able to adjust, right? So self regulate. And also, we are interactive system. We can interact with everything. So interactive system. So when all these things are present, then along with that also capable of responding to external stimuli. Capable of responding to external stimuli or stimuli. So when you are capable of responding to the external stimuli, all the external things, then you are considered as living. So the most important thing, when will you call somebody as living? We are going to call an organism as living if it is able to, if it is able to self replicate, if it is able to evolve, if it is able to self replicate, if we are able to evolve with the surrounding, if we are able to self regulate, if we are interactive, we are able to interact with the components, whether it is living and non-living things, and also capable of responding to external stimuli. Interact means we are able to respond only, right? We are able to respond, we are able to adjust to different things. You know, when you touch something hot, you know when you are touching something cold, you don't burn yourself in the fire, right? Because you can feel that. So then you are called as living. When all these things, any kind of organism which is able to do, then they are called as living. But now the most important factor is, how do you define? Okay, you know, this is the definition of living organism, but how do you define something as living or non-living? So such features, there are some particular features which are the main, they are the main, like, if they are not present, then we cannot call something as living organism. So those are known as defining feature. Defining features. So defining features are nothing but features which define a living organism, whereas non-defining features are features which do not define a living organism. Non-defining, sometimes we feel like, sometimes we feel like some feature may be defining, but it might not necessarily be the reason for calling somebody living. Correct? Sometimes you may see a certain quality and you may say this thing, this object is living, but that is not a defining feature at all, right? So that is the meaning. Defining means based on what can you tell if something is living or not. So the most important thing based on which we decide whether something is living or not is metabolism. In our body, daily different types of reactions are going on, whether they can be anabolic reactions, catabolic reactions, some reactions which are constructing different things in our body, breaking down different things. For example, our body generates certain types of proteins by breaking down amino acids. That is some kind of reactions which are able to manufacture something, or breaking down whatever food you are eating, that is breaking down and converting into nutrients. So our body does all types of reaction. Metabolism means combination of all different types of reactions that is happening in our body, that is called as metabolism. Reactions happening in our body. And what is cell organization? That is the next defining feature, cell organization. We don't have just one cell, we just don't have a single cell, we have multiple cells. Our body is made up of lot of cells, and those cells are organized very properly, just like building blocks. You will be able to see them that they are clearly organized, and one cell is able to communicate with the other cell, and that cell is able to communicate with the other cell, this cell is going able to communicate with this cell, and then it is finally able to do a specific function. After everything, finally the cell is able to do something. Our muscle cell, our muscle is made up of many cells. For example, when you talk about muscle, muscle is composed of lot of cells, and when these lot of cells are joined together, they form a muscle tissue, and then the muscle is able to perform a specific function. Then you are able to walk, move, talk, run, whatever you are able to do with your muscles, that you are able to do only when these things are happening. So that is the entire concept of cell organization. And next, consciousness. Remember this carefully. So without metabolism, if an organism is not able to do metabolism, if an organism is not able to metabolize, if it is not able to have chemical reactions going in its body, then it is said to be non-living. And if it is able to do it, then it is called as living. Cell organization, if it has lot of cells in it, living cells which are able to communicate with themselves, then it is called as living being. And consciousness, unless a living organism is conscious, unless a living organism knows what is happening around it in the atmosphere, in its environment, it is not called as living. So we are all living because we are conscious. We can feel what is happening around us. We know what is happening here and there. So then we are called as conscious. So that is why we are all considered as living organisms. So these are the defining features of living organism. Now what are the non-defining features? What doesn't define? Most of you may think that growth. Sir, if an organism is able to grow, that also means it is a living being, right? All living beings grow. Agreed. All living beings do grow. But that doesn't mean that something is living. Just because something is growing, you cannot call that it is living, right? For example, when you talk about sand, if you go to desert, in some places the sand hills, small type of sand hills, they grow. Sand comes and deposits on that, a lot of sand sits on that and it grows. Sometimes it becomes small when the sand flies away. So that doesn't mean it is a living thing. On mountain, sand accumulates and it grows, mountains appear to be growing, that doesn't mean that it is a living thing, right? So living being, growth is not a defining feature. We cannot tell something is growing so it is living. And next, reproduction. Reproduction also is not that defining feature, because so many human couples, so many couples are there, so many humans who are not able to give birth, right? So there are humans who are suffering from certain problems. They are facing difficulty in having kids. They are not able to reproduce. That does not mean they are not living, right? So we cannot consider reproduction as a only reason to call something as living. That if you consider reproduction as a reason for calling something living, then those humans who are not able to give birth, they should be considered as non-living. But that's not the case, right? So that's why we cannot consider reproduction as a characteristic for considering something living. And also sterile worker bees, honeybees, some honeybees are sterile, they cannot give birth. For example, worker bees, female worker bees. See, drone is a male. Drone is a male honeybee, whereas worker bee is a female honeybee. And there is also a queen. Only this queen can mate along with this male, and it can give rise to new honeybees. These worker bees, though they are female, they cannot give rise to new honeybees. Okay, so that is the concept of honeybee. So that means all honeybees which cannot give birth, they are not living, right? But they are actually living. So we cannot call living being living, something living and not living based on just reproduction. One is because of humans. You have seen sterile couples which are not able to give birth. Another reason is honeybees. Next, let's talk about the next non-defining feature, self-consciousness. Except human beings, no other organism is having self-consciousness. That means they are all not living. They are living. Other organisms do have consciousness. Don't feel like they don't have consciousness. Other organisms do have consciousness, but they don't have self-consciousness. Okay, so that is the meaning. So these are not defining features. These cannot be called as defining features. Based on these, you cannot consider something as living. These are the ones which define whether something is living or not. Every living organism does metabolize. There cannot be a living organism which does not do metabolism. Even a small bacteria does metabolism. Cell organization, even a bacteria has cell organization. Though it is a single cell, inside it there is a organization. All the components inside the cell are able to interact with each other, and even a bacteria is conscious. Even a bacteria can sense what is happening around it. So these are considered as living defining features, whereas these are not considered as defining features. You cannot rely on these features and tell if something is living or not living. Now the most important topic, we are going to start with the next most important topic, that is biodiversity. What is biodiversity? What is biodiversity? what is this biodiversity? So biodiversity means around you, around you and me, we are able to see so many different type of species, right? Even one single species is not same. One single species itself has so much biodiversity among it, all look different. Where if you see humans, so all the species, they are completely different. That is called as biodiversity. All are different. So there is almost 1.7 to 1.8 million. It's a very huge number, right? 1.7 to 1.8 million different type of species are there. And if you start expanding, where do you find this 1.7 to 1.8 million? You will tell that near my home I don't see 1.7 to 1.8 million. When you start increasing your area, if you expand the area that you are scanning, if I see in this area, I may be able to see 5 organisms. If I see this area, I may be able to find 10 different type of species. If I scan this area, I may be able to find 20 different type of species. So this is the meaning of biodiversity. Biodiversity increases with increase in area. If you increase the area that you are seeing, then the biodiversity also will increase. And next point is, new species can be found in new areas. If you go to new areas, you will be able to find new species. If you go to different areas, suppose if I leave India and if I go to foreign, definitely I will be able to see different type of species, right? So this is the concept of biodiversity. And now, so what did we learn? We learned about Ernest Mayr, we learned about living beings and what are the defining features. How do you call something as living and how do you call something as non-living? Now we learned about biodiversity. Now, since there are so many different type of species, isn't there a necessity to name them? In a class, if there are different types of students, we require to give a name to all the type of students, right? So same way, since there are different type of species, it becomes important to name them. So in the next page, I will just write in the next page the next important topic. So the next important thing that you are going to discuss is taxonomy. It is important to identify them and important to name them. That's why we got this completely new branch which is known as taxonomy. So taxonomy's role is basically, see, there are different type of taxonomy, conventional and modern taxonomy. First let's talk about conventional taxonomy. Conventional taxonomy. Along with conventional, there is also modern taxonomy. The modern taxonomy. So let's talk about what is this conventional taxonomy. You should be very curious to know about it. Then later we will talk about this modern taxonomy. First let's discuss about this conventional taxonomy. So what is this conventional taxonomy? So conventional taxonomy is nothing but, in this kind of taxonomy, how do we identify and name some organism? We are going to name the organism. That is the meaning of taxonomy, right? So we are going to name the organism. How do we name them? So the first step is characterization. We identify its characters. Characters. Characterization. So first step is characterization. For example, you have seen a dog. Dog has ears. Dog has a nose which is pointed outward. Dog has legs. Dog has a tail which the dog can wag. Dog is a friendly species. So an animal which is having all these characteristics is called a dog. A pet which can be kept at home, which produces a barking kind of sound, which has a nose protruded towards the outside, who has ears which are sharp, whose nose is very sharp, who wags his tail when it is happy. All these characteristics, when I tell you, that becomes, that is the meaning of what? That gives you the definition that it is a dog. So similarly, so that is characterization. After seeing all its characters, you will be able to identify it, right? So first you see all the character, then you will be able to identify it, which is called as identification. So first step is characterization. Then the next step is identification. We identify what that organism basically is. Then we are going to classify it. Then finally we are going to do its classification. We are going to put it in different classes, just like humans basically. So first we are going to identify what kind of student it is, what he is capable of. After we identify that, after seeing his characterization, different qualities, we'll identify where he is supposed to be, which class he is supposed to be. Then based on that we are going to classify him in first standard, second standard, third standard, which class he belongs to, right? So same way we are going to classify that whether it is a canine. We have different classes, which class it is going to fall into, we are going to classify that. And next final step is nomenclature. Final step is nomenclature. We are going to name it. Until now we didn't know its name, so we are going to name it. So to give a name to the organism, names can be based on ICBN. We have two codes, two systems which monitor the names given to them. ICBN means International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. This is a code. This is a code for giving nomenclature. How we are going to name botanical things, that is plants. International Code for Botanical Nomenclature. And then we have International Code for Zoological Nomenclature. So this is the full form of it. International Code for Botanical Nomenclature tells us how do we name the plants, and International Code for Zoological Nomenclature tells us that how we are supposed to name the animals. Now how do we do the nomenclature first of all? What are the rules? How do we name organisms? Let's talk about that. So to name the organism, we are going to, how do we name the organism? So these two people gave us the rules. Okay, so to name the organisms, the first step is there should be two names. That's why it is called binomial nomenclature. International Code for Binomial Nomenclature is the main who gives the rules. Two names should be present. One is, the first name is generic, and then specific epithet. Since specific epithet is written in small, I will write small alphabet. Okay, specific epithet. And the names are generally Latin. They are written in Latin. And italics font is followed. Italics. If you want to print it, you write in italics. If handwritten, if you are writing by hand, then you underline them separately, like how I have underlined here. Handwritten, underline separately both the names. So it consists of two names. For example, mango's name is Mangifera. Mangifera. I'm going to underline it. Indica. Indica should start with small alphabet. That is a rule. Indica, Lin. Lin also tells us lineage. Though there should be two names, we can also write the name of the scientist at the end, the person who discovered this mango, for example. Mango name was given by Linnaeus. So we write Lin, his name, at the end. That need not be written in Latin italics because that is not having a Latin origin, so we don't have to write it in italics. Italics tells us about the Latin origin. So Mangifera indica, that is the name of mango, and at the end we can write the name of the scientist as well. So these are the rules. It consists of two names, that's why it is called binomial nomenclature, and it is Latinized. It is generally Latin. If it is not a Latin name, we Latinize it, we make it like Latin, and then it is printed in italics. If you write by hand, then you underline it separately, and name of the scientist can be written at the end. Mango, the first name, that is the generic name. First name is called as generic name. This Mangifera is the generic name, and specific epithet here is indica. That is the species name. Okay, so Mangifera should be capital, and indica I should be small letter. Okay, remember this is the rule. Now let's talk about modern taxonomy. What is modern taxonomy now? Modern taxonomy, see, we learned how to characterize something, we learned how to identify something, we learned to do everything possible. Now there are few things which we forgot to include. We didn't include the external structure, external, also internal structure. So external structure, internal structure, basically internal structure, and also we didn't include the cell structure. So when you include all these things, when we talk about the external features, internal features, structure, internal structure, cell structure, how it is developing, whether it is having indirect development. So direct development means directly it is taking care of its baby, or indirect development, whether it is taking care of its babies indirectly. So how it is basically working. So that is called as modern taxonomy. That is what we discuss in modern taxonomy. So external structure, internal structure, and development process. So development process can be direct or indirect. Next, systematics. So in modern taxonomy we also have systematics. What is systematics now? So next is systematics. So in systematics we are going to discuss about taxonomy plus phylogenetic relationship. Until now we spoke about taxonomy, but along with taxonomy, if you include if you include the phylogenetic relationship. Phylogenetic. What is phylogenetic? If you include the phylogenetic relationship along with taxonomy, phylogenetic means evolutionary relationship. How something has evolved with time. What is the relationship evolutionarily among two different species? Two species have an evolution ancestor. They may have the same ancestor. So that is called as evolutionary relationship. So phylogenetic relationship is nothing but about the evolution. So along with taxonomy, if you consider the evolution as well, then it is called as systematics. Okay, that is the meaning of systematics. See, development process I will just write here because this is a something very important which you are going to study in the future. I didn't explain about it much. So development process can be direct development, or indirect development. So all of you have seen, for example, direct development means when the baby is born, right? So the baby looks like parent. Directly the baby looks like parent. But when you talk about indirect development, have you seen a frog? So frog, first it looks like a tadpole, like a fish. It is completely different, and then it becomes a frog. You have seen a butterfly. Butterfly has a caterpillar stage where it looks like a, initially it looks like some kind of, what is that? You have seen, right? Butterfly looks like a caterpillar. You have seen a caterpillar. Caterpillar looks like somewhat like an earthworm. You can tell a little bit like a earthworm. Then it becomes a butterfly after a certain stage. So those kind of things are known as indirect development. It's not developing directly. It doesn't directly resemble the parent. Slowly later it resembles the parent. That is called as indirect development. And direct development means directly when the baby is born itself, it is looking like the parent. So systematics means something which involves taxonomy and phylogenetic relationship. Now classification, remember this is very important. Classification is not a single step. Is not a single step. It involves hierarchy of steps. It involves hierarchy. Hierarchy means many steps. After one step you are going to follow another step. After that you are going to follow another step. So each step, when you talk about each step is called as, each step is known as, I will tell you what is the hierarchy. Okay, what are the hierarchy of step? Each step is known as taxa, or it can be called as rank, or it can be called as unit, or it can be called as group, or it can be called as category. So this is the meaning of hierarchy. Okay, each step is called as taxa, and each step is called as taxa, and rank, or a unit, or a group, or a category. So this is what we learned here. So these are the important things. Next we'll be learning about taxonomic hierarchy, and we'll also be learning about the taxonomic aids. So what did we learn first? First we learned about first first we learned about Ernest Mayr, about whom you must know. Then you must know what is living being, and they are nothing but they are beings which are able to self-replicate, evolve, self-replicate, interact, and capable of responding to external stimuli. And defining features of living beings we discussed: metabolism, cell structure, and organization, all those things. And those are the different types of things that we discussed. And then we also learned about what is biodiversity. Then we also learned, next we learned about what is taxonomy. Taxonomy can be conventional, that is identifying. Taxonomy means we are putting the organisms into different taxa, into different levels. We are categorizing them, we are putting them into different classes, we are identifying them. So taxonomy is nothing but characterization, identification, classification, and nomenclature. First we characterize them, identify them, and classify them, and then we name them. Then we have ICBN and ICZN. These are nothing but international code for biological nomenclature. ICBN full form is botanical nomenclature, and ICZN is zoological nomenclature. So these are responsible for plant names, and these are responsible for the naming all the different type of animals. These are the rules that I discussed. Next we'll be starting about the next part of our chapter. So the next part is taxonomic hierarchy. Now what is this taxonomic hierarchy? Taxonomic hierarchy means whenever you have any organism, first see the lowest, that organism is called as a species. Okay, there is one species. There is one species. There is a species. This species actually belongs to a genus. Species belongs to a group called genus. Lot of species. If you put different type of species, those different type of species, for example, tiger, lion, and leopard. So tiger, lion, leopard, all these belong to a group. All are same, right? All are similar group. They're all belonging to a group called Panthera. So they all belong to a group. So that is called as genus, the group which all belong to. Then all different type of such groups belong to a family. And then after that we have order. A lot of families form an order. And then we have class, then we have phylum, then finally we have, there's no space here, then finally we have kingdom, the biggest one. All belong to certain kingdoms. Okay, so that is the meaning of this. So right now, what did I explain you? I told you that species belong to genus, genus belong to family, families belong to certain classes, classes belong to phylum, and phylums belong to kingdom. So let's study this with certain examples. Let's talk about different type of species. There are different type of species given in a book. So different type of species given in a book are, let's talk about animals first. So we have tigris, which is tiger. Then you have leo, which is lion, and then we have pardus, which is leopard. So Panthera leo, Panthera tigris, Panthera pardus is their name because Panthera is their genus. So the name of tiger is nothing but Panthera. So Panthera leo, Panthera tigris, Panthera pardus is their exact name, but they belong to a species called tigris, leo, pardus, three different species. And along with Panthera, there are different species. One example is Felis. Cats belong to this family, genus. So all of you have heard lion, tiger, cats belong to same family. Cats belong to lion family, but they are in different genus. You're able to see here, genus is different. Cats belong to a genus called Felis, whereas lion, tiger, all these belong to a class called Panthera. They're not in the same class, but they're not in the same genus, sorry, but they are in the same family. So their family is nothing but Felidae. They belong to a family called Felidae. Then where does dog belong to? Dog belongs to Canidae. Okay, dog and cat is different family. Dogs belong to this family which is called Canidae. Canidae means dog because they are canines. Canidae, dog. Whereas Felis is the cat. Cats belong to Felis, and in this Felis we have Panthera. Along with that we have Felis also. Panthera and Felis both are present in Felidae. And in Panthera, if you talk about only Panthera, it has Tigris, Leo, and Pardus. So these are the different types. Now let's talk about where these all belong, where humans also belong. Mammalia. All of us are mammals. We raise our young ones. We have hair on our body. We nourish our young ones using milk, right? The mother gives milk to the child. So all are mammals. Whereas birds belong to aves. Birds don't belong to our order. They belong to a different order, which is they belong to a different class basically, which is called. So I just missed here. Mammalia is the class. So order is carnivora. All are carnivores. All carnivores meet here. All carnivores meet here in carnivora. Carnivora and primata. So Felidae, Canidae, like that we have carnivora or primates. Primates, you know, human beings are primates. So where do human beings, see, human beings belong to primate, whereas these all these belong to carnivora. But where do humans belong? Humans belong to primates. Whereas if you talk about other monkeys and all, they belong to primate. But where do all of these meet together? All of these meet together in Mammalia now. So Tigris, Panthera, Leopardus all belong to Panthera. Whereas Felis, Panthera, all these belong to Felidae. Whereas all these Canidae, if you add extra, it belongs to Carnivora. Whereas all these belong to Mammalia. Now where do aves all these meet? So we have, so now let's not talk about meeting. They are indifferent. We have Annelida or chordata. These are the different types of phylum or division. There are many more. I'm just writing examples. Okay, so don't take these as main. These are just examples what I am writing for different phylum or division. So this is actually primata. Now let's talk about kingdom. Kingdom is animalia, plantae. There are different types of kingdom. So all these are animals. So we write all these in animalia. This is how we write. Next, let's talk about plantae. Plantae basically has angiosperms, gymnosperms, two different types of phylum. In plants, it is not called as phylum; it's called as division. Okay, gymnosperm. Remember, when you talk about plants, you use the word division, not phylum. But when you talk about animal, you use the word phylum, not division. Remember. So these are phylum, whereas these are division. Okay. Next we have dicot, dicotyledons or monocot. Those are the classes. Monocot. And next we have monocot. Is there an option? No. So let's me erase it. So we have monocot, and order belongs to, the order is polymonials. Sapindales. These tables are given in a book, you can just practice it. Okay. And then we have Solanaceae, the family Solanaceae. See, families end generally with AE. And Convallaceae. And then we have Solanum, Petunia, Dhatura are different types of genus. Solanum, Petunia, Dhatura. Whereas if you talk about species, the species are Tuberosum, Nigrum and Melangina. These are different type of species. So this is how we have our taxonomic hierarchy. So taxonomic hierarchy starts with species is the lowest. See, there is one kingdom, animalia, plantae, fungi, or different types of kingdom you will be learning in future. But kingdoms contain lot of phylums, different types of phylum. Each phylum has again lot of classes, and each class has again lot of order. Each order has lot of families. Each family has lot of genus. Each genus has lot of species. So which is the location where you find lot of similarities? In species you see lot of similarities. All are similar. All species are similar. Tiger, lion, all these look similar, right? But if you see cat looks little different from these. When you look at dog looks completely different. When you look at monkeys, they look completely different. So common similarities keep decreasing if you go up. As you go upward, the common characters keep decreasing. They don't have much things in common then left. So common characters decrease as you go this side. Correct. Common characters decrease. This is a kind of question which can be asked. Now let's talk about the final end of the chapter. The final thing that we are going to discuss is taxonomic aids. This is very important. Taxonomic aids. So what are these taxonomic aids? Taxonomic aids are nothing but what are the things, what are the tools that we use to identify organisms. We need to have something with us, right? So by which we can identify different types of organism, by which we can study about different type of organism. So the first taxonomic aid is herbarium. We have herbariums, we have botanical gardens, we have zoological parks, we have museums where you see different types of animals and all, museums where you can study about different animals. Then finally we have key. Okay, so these are not finally, and along with this we also have one more, flora manual monograph. Flora's manuals monographs. So let's study about these and then we will wind up with the chapter. So what are these? So when you talk about herbarium, herbarium is nothing but here we store lot of plants. We take a sheet, on that sheet plants will be pressed. We take a flower or some plant and then those plants are pressed on top of the sheet. So what we do, we take sheets, then we place a plant on top of it, we dry the plant, we press the plant and we preserve the plant. You have done, right? Sometimes if you see roses and all, you will take a rose plant, a small rose, and you will keep it in a book, and then you will keep it for a long time. It gets pressed and you store it like that, right? So same way we store the entire plant. So that is known as herbarium, where we have lot of plants and all the plants collector's name, the family of the plant, all the details are mentioned on it. So the local name, the biological, this is the binomial name, the collector's name, the date of collection, all those are written on top of that. Okay, and when you talk about botanical gardens are ex situ. Ex situ means we are keeping the animals in outside. See, here we keep them inside a room. Herbarium, lot of plant species are kept inside, but botanical garden outside we keep lot of plants. So you can see gardens and all, so plants are grown outside and name of the plant, all those details, the place where it is generally found. You have seen parks and all, right? Some parks are there where all those are present, details are present, so those are known as botanical gardens. And then we have zoological parks where we keep animals and all, same way. And then you have museum where we have plants and animals both. Animals are kept by stuffing them. Okay, animals are, after they are killed, after they are dead, we stuff them with cotton and all, and we use certain chemicals and all to preserve them. And insects are kept in insect boxes by collecting, killing and pinning them. So this is how we store them in the museum and all. So keys are nothing but on the based on similarities. Keys are based on similarities. What all similarities they have and differences. We see what are the similarities and what are the differences, and it has couplet. Couplet means both options. For example, I want to find you. I want to know who are you who is watching this video. So I will ask, are you tall or short? So that is known as couplet. Tall or short. I gave two options. Now one of the option is correct. So if you are tall, I will come to know. Then I will ask whether you are fair or dark, or I will ask whether you are smart or little poor in studies. So those two options are known as couplet, and that single lead, the single option which is correct, which is going to tell me about who you are. Suppose you are short, the single option is known as lead. Because of that, I will be able to identify you, right? So single option is lead, the single correct option. Now what are flora? Floras talk about the habitat where the organism is found. They are book which talk about habitat. Manuals are nothing but they are book which talk about species. Manual of species. They are manual of single species. They talk about a different species. Monograph talk only about one taxon. Manuals talk about species. Monograph, mono means single, so they talk only about one taxon. That one taxon can be anything: species, genus, family, order, class, any one particular type of taxon. If you are discussing about, that is known as a monograph. So this is the end of the chapter. Hope all of you understood the chapter and liked the concept what I have taken, the step what I have taken. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel, because if you do that, then definitely I will be more interested to upload the further videos, and I will definitely make a questions video where I will be discussing about all the different types of questions that can arise from this chapter. We'll be covering a lot of questions that are frequently asked from this chapter. So stay connected and do comment down below what is your opinion, how I can improve this video. Work hard and definitely you will be able to crack NEET. Thank you very much.